Hey yo everyone! The world of gaming has always been a crazy one filled with corporate rivalries and espionage, but some breaking news earlier this week has shaken up the industry in ways that we haven't really seen before. It has been reported that Electronic Arts, or more commonly known as EA, has been bought out by a group of investors and will now go private. One of gaming's largest, most historic publishers will now be owned and operated by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, or PIF for short, along with a few other contributors. So, what does this mean for EA? What does this mean for the larger gaming industry? Now that the dust has settled a bit, let's dive into this monumental transaction and try to find some answers. As always, if you enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Alright, let's get it. Alrighty, so let's start with the acquisition itself. It's been rumored for years now that EA would eventually get bought out and merge with another company. Of course, a lot of the reports hinted at Disney or Apple buying the game publisher, not the nation of Saudi Arabia. For a while now, Saudi Arabia has been trying to diversify its economy. Obviously, the oil fields have been mega productive, but it's clear they don't want to put all of their eggs in one basket. They've been becoming increasingly more present in American culture lately. Look, I'm not going to get into the weeds about this part. Saudi Arabia is a very complicated country with a lot of bad things going on. If you want to learn more, Google is free, my friend. But if you don't care about that part, basically all you need to know is that the Saudis have a crap ton of money and money rules the world, or at least EA. So let's talk about it. I think we should start with EA itself and how it even got in this position in the first place. Obviously, EA has a long history in the world of gaming. Love them or hate them or a combination of the two, it doesn't matter. Video games would not be what they are today without EA's impact on the industry. Despite its legacy though, EA has really been struggling these past few years. There have been a couple of original hits like Apex Legends and the Star Wars Jedi series, but other than that, the company has been staying afloat thanks to their annual tentpoles like Madden, FIFA, and to an extent, I suppose, Battlefield. I guess I don't know if I should actually say staying afloat, as the company apparently now has $20 billion in debt and owned by a private entity, but you get my point. So, EA ultimately got bought out for $55 billion, the largest buyout in history and the second largest purchase in gaming history. A press release that came out earlier this week reads, "The transaction will be funded by a combination of cash from each of PIF, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners, as well as rollover PIF's existing stake in EA, constituting an equity investment of approximately $36 billion and $20 billion of debt financing." Now, I'm not an accountant, so I had to do some research on this, and I think Games Radar summed it up well. You may have heard about leveraged buyouts funded by private equity in the past, and this is essentially how they work. An investor or a group of investors puts up some amount of cash to buy a company, while the rest of the purchase is funded through debt taken by that company. In grossly simplified terms, once the deal closes, EA will have a $20 billion mortgage on itself. So essentially, if I'm understanding this correctly, EA is being valued at $55 billion, but the investors are only paying $36 billion of it. The remaining $20 billion will go under EA's name in debt. So that isn't $20 billion worth of IPs or game studios or anything, that's just $20 billion the investors are taking out in straight debt with nothing to show for it. That's quite a bit of change. Looking back at other major leveraged buyouts in the past, I think this one can be compared similarly to the Toys R Us one back in 2007. The company took on more debt than they could handle and couldn't dig themselves out of that hole. Fierce competition, a tough economy, and a worse overall customer experience ultimately led to them filing for bankruptcy in 2017. Yeah, not really a fan of how this is looking for EA. After all, Saudi Arabia didn't just fork over billions of dollars for nothing. Of course they want to see EA turn a profit. Jason Schreier of Bloomberg reported that this $20 billion of debt could mean mass layoffs, aggressive monetization, and other big cost-cutting measures. I mean, we don't have to look very far for an example of how this might play out. I mentioned earlier that this is the second largest gaming acquisition in history. The first one, of course, being the Activision purchase by Microsoft back in 2022 for nearly $70 billion. Since then, it feels as if Activision and Xbox have been playing catch-up. Mass layoff after mass layoff, game cancellations left and right, giving up on console exclusives, entire game studios shut down, and now Game Pass is getting a 50% price increase. I think I'm gonna make a full video on that next week, so stay tuned. God, I get that capitalism is great and all, and competition is good for any industry, and it's what built America, but this hyper fixation on raising the bottom line no matter what is really lame, man. Trying to maintain infinite growth in a finite economy is gonna hit its limit at some point, and this bubble will eventually burst. But I digress. Alright, so Jason Schreier mentioned that mass layoffs, aggressive monetization, and other big cost-cutting measures are likely on the way. What does that mean though? Well, I think it's exactly what it sounds like. The end-shitification of everything continues. Expect Battlefield 6 to be loaded with battle passes and expensive cosmetics. Expect major studios to close and games to be outright cancelled. I mean, if EA is only going to work on their big IPs, that spells a lot of trouble for their older titles that haven't had success recently. Don't hate me for this, but I honestly think that BioWare could be shut down and the next Mass Effect game likely cancelled. There have already been rumors that BioWare staff are preparing for future downsizing as it is, and they've already gone through a lot. And if that's the case, then I hope they just get bought out by another publisher, similar to what happened to Tango Gameworks, but that's not guaranteed. I'm just concerned because I'm not sure if older titles, like Skate for example, would have ever even gotten another chance to prove itself under this new regime. But besides all of the layoffs and studio closures that are bound to happen, EA's new ownership has also mentioned cost cutting by implementing AI technology into game development. Ah yes, artificial intelligence. Of course, why didn't anyone think of this before? According to an article from Rock Paper Shotgun, investors are betting that AI-based cost cuts will significantly boost EA's profits in the coming years. So they're looking to utilize generative AI in the development process and are hoping to really lean on it to save money. God, see, I didn't think EA could get any worse. I was clearly wrong. Alright, okay, look, I'm gonna go on a little bit of a rant here. I am so sick of all this AI talk, man. People think throwing ChatGPT at every problem will magically fix things. It won't. It won't. When AI was first making these big advancements, I was so excited, just like everyone else, for its place in the industry. I even made a whole video about it. But now, as we learn more and more about AI and how it's actually being utilized, I don't think I really like it. Honestly, I kind of hate it. Don't get me wrong, I think it's great to use as a tool, but not as a replacement for developers and their creativity. I don't want AI-generated shovelware. I want good games made by real people who are passionate about their work. That's where I want to spend my money. I guess we're probably going to find out if I'm in the minority on that or if other people feel the same way, because it certainly looks as if EA will be cutting corners wherever they can. Definitely expect more AI-generated slop in the years to come. Which brings me to what I want to talk about now. What happens next? That's the whole thing about this acquisition. It's so different than what we're used to. Normally, a big gaming studio or publisher gets bought out by another one, not some private equity firm with no track record in video games. We're looking at a complete wild card here, and they have some big IPs to play with. This isn't just some schmuck who bought the rights to Flappy Bird or something. We're talking about an entire nation buying one of gaming's most iconic publishers. We, as gamers, will feel the effect of this. To what extent, I'm not sure, but you can't just have a player as big as EA go through such a monumental shift without causing a ripple effect throughout the rest of the industry. What happens when this deal is fully processed? What studios will remain intact? What about ongoing projects? What franchises will be left to rot in IP purgatory? There are so many questions. Will the Saudis be passive owners? Like, are they just in this for the money side of things? Because if that's the case, then they might just only make sports games going forward along with the occasional Battlefield. And I suppose that would make sense as well, since the PIF has been investing in American sports lately. Might as well own the whole ecosystem from top to bottom, I guess. I just don't know if these guys are going to be generous with their time and money to develop actually good games again and help rebuild EA's diminished reputation. Honestly, I don't even know what kind of quality games to expect moving forward in general. I've already seen some developers voice their concerns on how this new ownership will manage things. Will they be directing studios on what kind of games they can make? What kind of content? Like, is there going to be straight up censorship on certain subjects? Saudi Arabia isn't necessarily known for being very tolerant of differing values. Going back to BioWare, a former project director, Mark Dara, had this to say about different political views. For the studios that have more of a track record, especially a track record that maybe doesn't line up with your own political views, you're going to look at that studio and wonder how you make them fit into your new structure. It's hard to imagine that you have BioWare pivot from having very progressive messaging to have the reverse because it's what the government wants. It's hard to imagine that the public perception of a game that comes out of BioWare, even if you do that, isn't apocalyptically bad. And for the developers that are staying, God, dude, I just don't know. Like, I really hope for EA's sake, they don't require people to relocate to Saudi Arabia. I know that sounds crazy, but if they truly want to diversify their economy, then they probably want to bring different types of jobs to their country, like video game development. The thing is, the gaming industry, just like the real world, is full of diverse people and opinions and values. If they don't feel comfortable moving or sharing their skills or experiences for EA because of Saudi's questionable human rights track record, I don't blame them. Even if EA is just staying the course for now and letting their studios continue working on their current projects, I'm sure some of this moral ambiguity will affect team morale. Who knows, maybe these developers will just leave the company, and if they do, I'm not sure EA will replace them because they want to downsize anyway and replace people with AI. I mean, even if you don't agree with other people's politics, this is just a bad way to run a company, right? Then this will probably lead to more crunch work for other devs and result in crappier and crappier games for us. Also, this just popped into my head, a lot of EA's partnerships are probably looking at this deal and reassessing if they want to continue doing business with them. For example, a lot of the universities featured in college football might have some negative publicity due to the new ownership. I have no idea if this will actually be the case at all. It very well could be a non-factor, but it is an unexpected wrinkle to at least think about. And what happens if these games that they are putting out aren't successful? Do the Saudis just give up on game development and close down EA? Do they keep those beloved IPs locked behind copyright, or do they auction them off? These are some legendary studios and franchises whose fate is a complete unknown at this point. Kind of ironic if you think about it. EA is being bought out by a larger entity, drained of all its worth for a quick buck, and then will probably end up being dissolved when it's of no more use. Kind of like what they've been doing to other studios for years now. Look, at the end of the day, I have no idea how this is going to turn out. Maybe going private will be best for EA and they can just focus on the quality of their games instead of trying to appeal to the shareholders. Or maybe this new ownership group will do a complete takeover of the company and rebuild it from the ground up to their own liking. I don't know. It's one of those things, like most things in life, I suppose, that will just take time to fully understand. All I know is that EA, despite all of its faults, is still a very important contributor to our industry, and its changes will affect us consumers in one way or another. But until then, I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of the EA acquisition? What do you think happens next? Are you more optimistic or pessimistic about the company's future? I'd love to hear all of your hopefully polite and civil thoughts down below in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It means a lot. I appreciate you guys as always, and I'll catch you in the next one.